In the remote countryside of Wisconsin in the 1950s, a seemingly humble farm concealed horrors no fiction could surpass. This is the tale of Edward Theodore Gein, a man whose atrocities would inspire some of cinema's most iconic monsters. Tonight, we delve into the twisted mind of a murderer, the discovery of his macabre workshop, and the decades that followed. Let us proceed with the caution of a detective stepping into a locked, dark chamber. Born August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Ed Gein was second of two sons. His father, George, was a laborer, often inebriated. His mother, Augusta, was a devout, domineering religious zealot who preached against sexual sin. Augusta discouraged Ed from social interaction, especially with women, warning that Eve was the source of sin. Over the years, Ed's older brother Henry died in a fire under murky circumstances. Some speculated Ed may have had a role. No proof emerged. When Augusta died in 1945, Ed claimed he lost his only friend. He remained on the isolated farm with grave spiritual guilt and growing inner turmoil. As a detective, one might ask, when does devotion turn to obsession? And when does guilt warp into something monstrous? To outward appearances, Ed lived a simple, reclusive life. Neighbors rarely saw him, and rumors spread that he spent long hours indoors, reading pulp novels and morbid magazines. But beneath that facade, a more sinister ritual was taking root. Local graveyards held recently buried corpses, especially women whose features reminded him of his mother. He began exhuming them under the cloak of darkness. Why? To fashion from their remains tools, furnishings, even items of clothing. Objects imbued with a twisted homage to death. The detective's ledger would note multiple exhumations, uncanny trophies, and a mind reshaping mortal remains into domestic artifacts. The first confirmed murder, Mary Hogan, a middle-aged woman who disappeared in 1954. Her head was later found among Gein's collection. But the crime that would doom him to infamy occurred in 1957 with the disappearance of Bernice Worden, who ran a small hardware store. In investigating her vanishing, police traced clues to Ed's farmhouse. When authorities finally entered, they encountered horrors beyond belief. Human remains fashioned into lamps, bowls, masks, clothing, objects built from skin and bone. Among the items, a woman's suit of human skin, apparently intended for Gein to don himself. Skull bowls, masks, lampshades made from the skin of corpses, furniture crafted with human bone and skin. In that moment, the line between man and monster was severed. Gein was arrested, stood trial, but never fully faced conventional justice. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. His mental state was severe. Doctors and psychiatrists argued he was unfit for trial. He was ultimately committed to a mental institution, never to re-enter society. He died on July 26, 1984, in a psychiatric hospital. The verdict? A man undone, not just by crime, but by a fractured psyche. As a detective might reflect, sometimes the greatest mystery is not how a man commits evil, but how his mind is so deeply altered that he can do so. Though Gein confessed to 2 murders, speculation abounds. Could he be linked to other disappearances, such as the case of Evelyn Hartley? The Netflix show dramatizes Hartley's fate, but historical evidence is inconclusive. His macabre practices inspired cinematic monsters. Norman Bates in Psycho with his murderous mother fixation. Leatherface of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, who used human skin masks. Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs with woman suits echoing Gein's creations. In Netflix's Monster, the Ed Gein story, creative liberties were taken. A character named Adeline Watkins is portrayed as a romantic interest, though historical proof is dubious. The show also dramatizes a relationship between Gein and Bernice Worden, which has no firm basis in fact. Some plot lines, e.g., Gein's link to Evelyn Hartley, romantic involvement, correspondence with other killers, are fictional enhancements rather than documented truth. Yet the question remains, are monsters born, or are they shaped by trauma, isolation, and obsession? The case of Ed Gein remains one of the darkest chapters in criminal history, a chilling intersection of pathology, ritual, and murder. As detective, we must ask, where does fascination end and horror begin? Are we, as an audience, complicit in gazing into darkness? Gein's legacy is not just in what he did, but how his story echoes in our nightmares and our culture. May we remember, in the quest to understand depravity, we must never lose sight of humanity.